Welcome back for another OG Show Live. Mr. Randall, how you doing?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Reel Down.
Welcome back to another episode of Bass Fishing for Noobs.
Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to once again the Bass Kayak Advance.
Brother, this is the final cast.
Another segment of Chasing the Tide, your saltwater connection on the paddle fin.
Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of Feather and Fur. Your host, Brad.
Welcome back to the Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Crystal.
Hey, welcome back to Off the Water.
Susie Q here with Adventures of Outdoor Woman podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Rusty Hook Kayak Fishing Podcast.
We're brought to you by Pelican, built tough for all situations. Go to pelican.com. Eastport Marina on the beautiful shores of Dale Hollow Lake. For all your lodging, kayaking, go to eastport.info. Yak Gadget for all your fine kayak fishing accessory needs. Go to yakgadget.com.
What's up, guys? You're listening to the final cast on Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. I'm Brad.
I'm Matt.
And we are both sick right now, so bear with us.
Yeah, dude. Today, so I went to work yesterday, and I was like, oh, this is not great, because I started feeling like crap. Throat hurt, had a headache from like 3 a.m. till I went to sleep last night. Ears started hurting, big sinus. I was like, I must just have a sinus infection. I'll just be a man and deal with it. And then last night, I started coughing real bad, and I almost thought I was tasting blood, and I was like, oh no, I've cancer or something. But I went to the urgent care, because don't go to real doctors because they overcharge. The medical system in America is rigged. And paid my $20 copay, and they said I had strep and an ear infection. So I've just been a big baby, and I've played Madden 23 all day. So it wasn't terrible. I'm taking the Browns to the Super Bowl again. It's just a dream that is never going to happen.
That's funny.
Yeah. And the plus of taking off work is I get to be home when stuff like this comes in the mail.
That's sweet, dude. Oh, I can't wait to check that out.
Dude, I'm so pumped. You've seen my other one, how I've just beat it to death and treated it like crap. This one is so nice that I feel bad for its future. Because I'm just gonna beat it up.
Yeah, that's what it's for. So use it. Use it.
Yeah, I got this, and then I got 1,200 yards of 10-pound and 12-pound sunline because I found them on a deal for like $30 for $6.60 a piece. So
that's
good.
Bad.
Yeah, and then I got because of you, I got 660 yards of Sunline Natural monofilament on Amazon. 660 yards of 20-pound for like $9.
Wow. I need to get some.
Crazy. Right on Amazon 2 days. It was actually next day prime. I literally got it 12 hours after I ordered it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, so I had a little fun, and I ordered something too. So I got a Bantam MGL on the way. So I'm pumped to check that out.
Literally one of the best reels. If I had to give away all my both my Antares, my Metaniums, my Scorpions, all my Corrados, and my accents, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna replace them all with Bantams. I'd be like, okay, that's fine. I'm not too upset at that. It's easily the best MGL reel, and I have a Metanium MGL, non-DC, Bantam MGL, SLX MGL, Chronarch MGL. I've got them all, and the Bantam's the best. It's awesome.
Heck yeah, can't wait to try it. Few house keeping things before we get started. Dark Horse Tackle Box. Use Paddle 20 if you want to save on your first monthly subscription. 100% made in America baits, custom baits. So it's a cool box. Check it out. And Nico, right?
Yes. Yeah. We are a proud sponsor, we're proud to be sponsored by Nico Baits. Some of the best super plastic or elastic baits that you can find in the market. A lot of great shapes, guaranteed. Unless you lose it, a fish isn't going to tear it up. And I can attest to that. So can Brad. I mean, I've caught almost 40 fish on a single leech before I lost it, and it looked no worse for wear. And they got 2 new baits out this year: the Nico Crawl, which is one of the most realistic crawls I've ever seen in my life, and the Winnow, which is a soft plastic swim bait made out of Elastec that swims and thumps better than almost any plastic that I've ever thrown. And again, super plastic, so it will last forever. It's awesome.
Awesome. And then one other shout out I wanted to give. This wasn't planned. I just thought of it just now. Shout out to our buddy Justin. He got married over the weekend. Justin and Anna,
Yes, he did.
congrats. And then also, Justin beat the Smalley Games board, so he's a bronze master. So congrats, Justin. You had a hell of a week.
Yeah, he's had a big year. Bronze master, got married. Again, congrats from me and mine to both of you. It was a beautiful wedding. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. So
We did. It was
props
fun.
to you, Justin. I'm sure we'll have him on again during the winter, talking about winter fishing and stuff. So
Yeah. So, without further ado, we have Dropzone Tackle in the house. They got a unique rattling weights that I came across. I don't remember how, but I was like, oh, this is really cool. We need to have these guys on and talk about it because
definitely.
I like the idea. So, we brought on Dropzone Tackle. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So, I completely dropped the ball before we started, and I didn't even catch your name. So,
It's okay.
how about we do a little intro? What your name is, where you're from, how you got into this whole thing.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. So my name is Dennis. I'm the owner of Dropzone Tackle, and I've been fishing like most people, since you're old enough to do it, and started fishing tournaments around like 22, 23 years of age, and 20 years later, I'm still doing it. And we kind of came across this. I like throwing a drop shot. I fish with a guy now. He taught me a lot about it, and we won a lot of tournaments doing it. But I give you kind of how it came up. We fished a tournament at a local lake called Leesville Lake, and the water was fairly clear, and we were catching fish with a drop shot in just very predictable areas, ends of laydowns, brush piles, dock piles, things like that. So we had another tournament coming up the following weekend. I went with a friend of mine that I worked with in law enforcement, and we went during the middle of the week just do a little practice. And the water had gotten a little dirty, and we were throwing. I could see the fish on the live scope. I knew that they were still there, but I mean, unless you came within an inch or two of them, they were not going to bite it. And even if you did, I remember once just bumping a fish and he still just wouldn't eat it. And I knew that we needed like one more level of attraction. They wouldn't hit moving baits, high bluebird skies, high pressure. It just wasn't happening. And I just kind of jokingly said to my buddy, I was like, man, I know they'll bite the drop shot because we've caught a few doing it. But maybe we need to like have a rattle in the weight or something, because we try putting rattles in the worm, but these companies, they spend the time and the effort to get the worm to, just like the leeches that you were talking about. I love those things, by the way, by Nico.
They're amazing.
But they have a very particular action. They're very flowy. They're swimmy. They do what they're designed to do. If you start sticking rattles in the tail or the head or whatever, you're changing the action of that bait.
Mm-hmm.
So that idea about putting a rattle in the weight, it's just something I had in mind. And a couple months later, I actually got serious about trying it, and I realized why it didn't exist before, because it was very difficult to make and lead to a sound dampening device or material by design. And it just it was a challenge, but finally I figured it out and I used it. We won some tournaments. I kind of kept it a secret for the first year, and we did really well with it. Guy used it in the night tournaments, and he won every Friday night tournament the first year that he used it. And he was throwing the drop shot, and he was putting it in brush piles, and he compared it to like when you're hunting. I don't know if you guys hunt or not, but when the buck is rutting and you can call him and he's just coming in on a string, he said, I wouldn't chase the fish with a live scope. I would just throw this 3/8 ounce rattle shot in the brush pile with a good sized worm to display some water, and I would shake it. And he said you could watch the fish on the screen just swim over to the brush pile. He keeps shaking it, then you feel the bite, and that was a secret for the year. And he won. Like I said, I don't know how many it was, but it was every Friday night that he fished. He ended up winning.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
Yeah. So it just kind of moved on to the next step, and just give a shout out to John Cruz with Missile Baits. He's it's about an hour from me, physical location wise. So I reached out to him. Never met him before. Just kind of told him who it was and what I had, and he has been a mentor to me from that day, still to this day. And he is the man. He's done a lot for me, introduced me to a lot of people, and we grew from an idea to now it's a national brand. It's available from California to Virginia. Tackle Warehouse, Pittman Creek, Fish USA, you name it, is probably on their website.
So is this something that you pour by yourself in your own house, or how does that work?
No, well, originally, yes. But I quickly realized that's not something I really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of work, and I didn't want my family exposed to the lead, and I didn't have the right safety equipment. So, and not to mention just the sheer number that I would have to pour once we reached, a goal that I had for us to reach. It just wasn't something I was going to be accomplished on my own. So Now they're outsourced to a manufacturer, and then they ship them to me. I still package every one, 5 to a pack on the smaller sizes, 4 to a pack on the larger sizes, and then we, like I said, we ship them out to the wholesalers and distributors and sell on our website, local dealers, things like that. So it's going really well, and I'm really blessed that it's doing as well as it is.
That's awesome. I love to see, something like I say on time again on all my shows. I love seeing small companies succeed because 9 times out of 10, a small company will listen to consumers, and there's a personable aspect behind it. Like exactly what you said. Safety when you pour lead and stuff. That's what a lot of people don't realize when they buy like do-it molds and they're just doing it in their garage and their garage door's closed, and then they wonder why they're getting headaches. Well, it's because you're dying. That's what it is. So you send them out, but they're still shipping to you, and you're packaging them all individually. So like there's still that work, and I think that when it comes to small businesses, that big piece, because anyone will tell you who's in this industry, packaging baits can be like one of the most annoying things on earth, and it's very tedious, and it's like you're in a sweatshop because you're doing the same thing over and over 12 hours a day. But I love how successful it's got. So that's awesome. And I can attest for everyone out there who is new to wanting to change it up, a rattle is the most underrated thing on earth. I found that out this year. Tough jig bite. It wasn't the rattle shots, but I got glass beads, and like you said, it throws the whole action off. So I was just doing it on trailers and stuff because I didn't really care about the action, and I was getting more bites. I mean, Brad can attest. He would throw a jig, I'd throw a jig on the river, and I would get bit 2 times for every one of his. And
I would never get bit on the jig.
It was awesome. Like I was like, dude. Me and rattles, we're real close now.
Yeah, I have a theory about that if you want to hear it, and this is kind of like what our product is based on.
Yeah,
bring it on.
Yeah, sure. So, like a drop shot in particular, is everyone knows that it's a really powerful fish catching technique. I mean, I can't count how many fish I've caught on it, let alone the millions of anglers around the country that have thrown a drop shot and caught fish with it. It's kind of our go-to, but it doesn't displace a lot of water with the bait or the weight, and it doesn't make any sound. You can add some scent for attractant or whatever, but you're really appealing to 1, maybe 2 of those bass's senses. And you're doing so by displacing the water, which again is minimum, and then the sight. And if you're in dirty water or even in crystal clear water, but you're on the other side of a tree, other side of a dock, pylon, stump, rock, whatever, he can't see it. He's not going to know it's there because it's not displacing enough water. He's not going to bite it. So when you're adding sound, you're not changing the action of that bait that they've already designed to catch fish, but you're adding sound. That's an 1/8 ounce there. You're adding sound and vibration to a technique that already catches fish. So now you're appealing to the sight again, the sound, the vibration with this lateral line, and you're doing it in a really natural and non-threatening way. So you're exponentially increasing your bite ratio and your bite window there, because not only is he going to bite it because it's more natural to him, especially if you shorten your leader on these, but you're going to be able to do it in places like stained water. And again, if you're on the other side of a brush pile, that fish may not see it, but now he hears it and feels it. He's going to come check it out. If you're just a little patient with it, you're going to get. I can't describe how many more bites you're going to get, but it's all just because you're adding that sound and vibration.
It's funny because when I go to pick up crankbaits, I always go after the one that has a rattle, and I'm always like, why do they make them without rattles? I never understand it. I always want that rattle. So that's funny. Let's talk about the product a little bit. So you obviously designed it and then you sent it to somebody. What is it made out of and how is it made exactly?
Sure. So, I tried a little bit of everything when I first made it. I tried drilling holes in the weight, and lead is so soft that, once you put a drill bit on it, just tears it up. And then I couldn't get the right combination of materials originally to get the sound to escape the lead. Because again, like I said, it's a sound dampening material. So ultimately what we found was part of it's patent pending now, that patent process. I went through the whole thing, and it takes about 2 years to get approved, but my space online is held now, so I don't mind talking about the details of it. But basically the idea or the whole premise behind this is the swivel, which you can only see. It looks totally normal. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it's just a normal swivel. The magic is on the inside. That swivel is elongated, and it has a brass tube that slides over the swivel and has 2 tungsten beads inside. And the tungsten is important, not just regular steel BBs. because the tungsten is more dense. So when it does knock, you get a lot more sound out of it. And the tungsten in the brass is what allows it to be loud enough for us to hear, but more importantly for the fish to hear and feel under the water. And that wasn't just an accident. That was trying to get the right combination of materials until, number one, we got the sound, and number two, we got the reaction from the bass that we wanted. It's just a rattle, and it sounds really simple, but there was a lot of time and research that went into getting it just right. So that's how it's made, and it's lead. We don't have the tungsten yet. The technology is there, the design is there. Unfortunately, the funds to fund that whole project is not, because each mold would cost me around 10 grand or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we have 5 different sizes. So I'll talk about that. Our newest size, we originally only had 4, and we just recently added the 1/8 ounce because that was our most requested size. So there's the packaging there. You guys can see that.
I'll put you full screen
reflection, but trying to get it to where it won't reflect. Yeah, there you go. So these are the 1/8 ounce, and they come 5 to a pack. So we have 1/8 ounce in the line grip and the line tie swivel. We have 2 different swivel types. We have 3/16 quarters, 3/8 and a half, and they all come in the 2 different swivel types, so you can choose what's right for you. A lot of people like the round line tie because they don't like the pinch, or they want to run it on a free rig kind of option like that. So we have those options. We also have some of the round line ties. Well, each of the sizes is available in powder coated as well.
Nice. I like powder coated baits.
Yeah, I like powder coated weights for A, they visually look better, but B, I just confidence wise, I feel like they hide in the water a little bit better than the non powder coated. I want to back up just a smidge.
Sure.
When you were talking about why you had to use tungsten BBs, and you kind of answered the question, but how much testing, like, did you go out with brass BBs in there and fish and try to, like, on live scope, try to watch the fish if they reacted?
Yeah, I'm limited in what I can do as far as research and under the water and things like that. I don't have a test tank or anything, except for when we did our first few shows, our trade shows in Raleigh and places like that. But it was a lot of live scope, a lot of familiar water to me, because I knew what the fish were doing and how they reacted to a normal drop shot, putting on a regular weight versus putting on the weight with some rattles in it, and then watching the difference in the fish. I think a lot of people, if the fish can see your drop shot, he's prone to go to it. If he bites it or not, I think it depends on a lot of factors, time of day, current, if you're in that kind of situation, feeding patterns of the fish, maybe presence of bait, barometric pressure, things like that. But the difference was when they did go down to it, if it was just visual, when it got to the bottom on a regular drop shot, you can hold it or you can shake it, you can drag it. There's about your 3 options, or swim it. And whether they bite it or not, again, it's up to those conditions. But what I saw immediately is that when you let it go to the bottom and then you start shaking it and you add that extra sound and vibration to it, my bite window went from just a few times I throw it to 100 fish and several will bite it, to now I'm throwing it and getting a bite half the time, which is incredible. If you guys have ever thrown to cruising fish or fish that are on a stump or something, you can see their reactions. They nose down to it, then they disappear with your bait because they get really close to the bottom, and you can't separate the target from the bottom. And you're just waiting for that bite, and it just doesn't happen. Now it's going to happen a lot more often, just because, again, I think I'm no scientist, but I really think it's because of the sound and the vibration, and you're doing it again in a really natural, non-threatening way.
So I know when you're drop shot fishing, you have it like 12 to 18 inches above the weight. Are you?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is, I think, I've done a lot of shows now, and I've talked to a lot of anglers, and that is probably the most common leader length. And I say leader, I mean between the bait and the weight. But I would 1000% recommend with this. It's going to sound crazy. If you do a 6-inch leader, 5-inch leader, 4-inch leader, that's going to be the difference. And I don't have my rod out, but I'll tell you why. If you can imagine a 12-inch leader dragging, try to get my fingers on the screen there. If you can imagine your weight's on the bottom, so that the line is angled like this, 12 inches now, that bait may be 6-8 inches off the bottom because of the angle that you're dragging it back. And if that sound and vibration is coming from the weight, we do this in the tank intentionally. We'll put like a 3-foot leader on it, throw it in the tank and shake it and watch the bass go down, and they start hitting that weight on the bottom and pinning it to the bottom. How we combat that and how we get more bites with it is we shorten that leader to the 4 to 6 inches. And when you drag it, now that bait may be 2 inches off the bottom, because of the angle of your line. So your weight's dragging the bottom, you're flipping it and it's rattling, but your bait is staying consistently 2 to 4 inches off the bottom. And that is where, especially with those leashes, if you watch it in the water with that, that's where a crawfish lives, and he also stands in a defensive position. So you're adding the sight and a very natural reaction from that crawl, and you're adding the sound and the vibration of him clicking his pinchers together. It all adds up to a really good picture for that bass, and he tends to bite in those situations. But I can count maybe on one hand the last 4 years that I've been using this, 3 years I've been using it. I can count on one hand how many times that I've gotten a bite, 1,000% confident it was a bite. I set the hook and nobody was home. The worm wasn't disturbed. There wasn't teeth mark on the plastic, where I know for sure he bit the weight, maybe 5 times, maybe. And this is with the rattle, and it's because I shortened that leader, and that will prevent those things from happening.
Yeah, that's what I was curious about. That's a good explanation. So.
Yeah, you took the question right out of my mouth, because I was thinking, because Brad, I know you don't throw a whole lot of drop shots.
I want to.
I know you want to, but
at the
I want
reservoir.
Yes, I mean that's the place. But when I came up from the south, because I was in Jacksonville, because I was in the Marine Corps, so I fished a ton down south. When I come up, I pretty much stopped throwing the drop shot as much. But down there, I was going to say, yeah, my leaders were usually 12 inches to 18 inches long.
Right.
You know, he just took the question right out of my mouth. And have you noticed any? Because obviously, when you're shorting that leader up, Brad doesn't believe me, but I fished a lot of deep water stuff where I'll free float the drop shot to where I won't make bottom contact. I know they're stacked up higher in the water column, and I'll just free float the drop shot all day long. And I used to get bit all the time. Have you noticed anything in that situation? Because that weight's so much closer, that they get line shy or anything?
I haven't noticed any. My bite ratio went up, and it sounds like a sales pitch. It went up through the roof when I shortened the leader, and then added the rattle to it. I can't explain why. To answer your question about getting it off the bottom, I think we've all seen it. We fish a brush pile, the end of a tree, and you can see that clearly on your live scope or whatever forward-facing sonar that you're using. And you see those fish. If you throw it in there, a lot of times if they're above the brush pile, they won't let it get through, and they'll bite it on the way down. But there are times when they are suspended above it and they won't bite it. So what I've done with it is I keep that short leader, same worm, robo worm, the leech, whatever I'm using. I'll throw it out there, and when I'm bringing it back to the brush pile, I'll actually just swim it by and shake it, and I'll give it that tick, 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 tick as it's coming by. So I'm adding the sound and vibration in a spot they certainly have never heard it before, and I'm just kind of letting it pendulum to me, but I'm adding action and shaking it while I do it, and I've gotten a lot of bites like that. Not a ton, but there are times when they're real finicky, and they won't bite a crankbait because there's no current. They won't bite a spinnerbait because there's no color in the water. There's no bait present. Putting it in the brush pile, it's just going past them, and they don't want it. I swim it by and shake it, and I picked up some extra fish doing that.
That's cool.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure.
So is there? So I like the cylinder weights compared to the teardrop. Do you guys make a teardrop?
We don't. That's something that's on the radar for us. Also, the round bell type, just a round circle. We're thinking about that as well. The technology is there. It's just, again, we're a small company. I'm trying to stay, as stocked as I can with inventory. So that's where the revenue is going. And we picked recently Pittman Creek. I don't know if you guys know them or not, but just a national distributor. We got on with them. I think largely in part because John Cruz reached out to the guys and just let them know that we were a good company. And again, John's been awesome. So we got picked up by them, and Mr. Bowman over there at Pittman Creek has been good to work with. And so I'm trying to keep my stock at a level where I don't have to back order anybody. And so far, so good. So as we continue to grow, I'll continue to add new sizes. We're definitely working on a shaky head right now. The design's there. It's ready to go. When I get it, I want to have enough to send out to everyone that's gonna order it, and I'm just not there yet. So that's definitely coming, probably early part of next year.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna buy that. I'm gonna buy the crap out of that.
Matt loves the shaky head.
I do, man, and I hated it for so long, especially up here because we fish tons of rivers, so I don't even think to throw shaky head. I'm throwing a Ned rig, paddle tail swim bait, small finesse jig. But I was like, I went out one day. I told Brad, I was like, I'm throwing the shaky head till I get bit on it. We went all the way up the spot. Everyone's catching fish. I'm still not catching anything, throwing this shaky head. And I finally go down and get bit, and I got bit like 6 times in a row. So now I love the shaky head.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna buy the living crap out of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There's something I've learned with the shaky head this year. I'll share it with you guys. Maybe it'll help you a lot. I mean, just by the name, you throw it out there and you shake it. Then you make sure it's on the bottom. Then you shake it. I've probably caught more fish this year on a shaky head than I have any other year. And I'll throw it out, let it go to the bottom, and I simply just drag it. It's doing nothing, but I'm just dragging it. And if I maintain bottom contact and it's kind of bouncing off the rocks and walking through the little pebbles and stuff down there, that's when I get the majority of my bites. And I've caught a lot of good fish this year doing that.
Yeah, that's what I found too. I was throwing a smaller shaky head, just a smaller to do a smaller bait, and I was like, well, and I was shaking it, shake, let it go, shake, and I wasn't getting bit on it at all for the first like 2 trips I went out, and then I was like, that was the day I'm gonna catch fish on it, and I got a big old sled head shaky head.
Yeah.
Just Texas rigged it, and I just dragged it, and I wanted that big old dense head. It was like a ½ ounce, like it was huge for the river, like massive. And I was just dragging it and hitting every rock. And if I felt a rock, I would kind of back off and then pop it just a smidge, just to run into that rock and make a little bit of noise. And then I would get bit on the hit. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yep. I wonder if it's the deflection and the quick change of direction, or if it's the sound, vibration, and the movement that gets those fish. And that's kind of goes back to what I was saying about the drop shot weights. Having all 3 of those certainly isn't going to hurt your chances of catching that fish.
Yeah, we had the same thoughts because sorry, Brad, I keep cutting you off, but it is
no, this is interesting.
You and me had the same thought because I was thinking this. I was like, well, they're hitting it when I hit a rock and I pop it off the rock really hard. Is it because it's moving somewhere else? But from you saying with the rattle shots, you're getting a lot more looks, a lot more bites from once you had that little bit of clicking in there. I would attest, now that you've said that, it reaffirms in me that it's that sound of the rock hitting. Same way when I'm throwing a jig over rocks, I get more bites over rocks because that's where smallmouth like to be. They don't like mud. But if I do know there's smallmouth on a soft bottom and a rocky bottom, and I can see both of them, I know if I'm on a rocky bottom, I'll catch more fish when that jig constantly contacts the rocks, because it's making, in my opinion, it's making just a little bit of sound or something that's bringing them over. They might be staring at it because fish will stare at a bait and just keep following it.
Yeah,
a little bit of sound might just trigger them to like, okay, well, that's something real or whatever they're thinking because they're fishing. I don't know, and they just smack it. So I'm going to say it's a sound.
They're such visual feeders that can you imagine when they see your bait and they're in that mode where they're going to eat, as soon as they see the bait, it's over. Like you probably couldn't get it away from them if you wanted to. But what if you could get that aggression amped up prior to them seeing your bait? If it's on the bottom and they're on the other side of a little ridge of rocks or a big boulder or whatever, and you're clicking and clicking and clicking, they're convinced before they get there that it's the real deal. And as soon as they see it, especially if you pop it off a rock and it has a quick motion, no way they're not going to bite.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. I love it.
Yeah, you kind of opened a door for like unlimited possibilities here. I mean, you can do it in almost every technique if you wanted to.
Right. So
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I was going to say something else, but I just forgot. So
it's my fault. I kept interrupting you.
That's all good.
We have another product that I have out. It just came out. It's only available on the website. I don't have enough to send out to the other companies, but I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Zika rig at all. Do you guys ever fish that?
Yep.
I was so excited for this because I was going to say, hey, Brad, it's your most favorite thing of all time. Brad will throw the Tokyo rig over Texas rigs, over jigs. He'll throw it, and it's a Zika rig, but it's what Brad does. Brad thinks he's innovative, right? So on his Tokyo rig, he'll put 2 tungsten weights upside down.
Yeah.
So they click and clack. Yep. It does it for you. It's right there, and it's awesome.
I can't take the credit for that. Mike Iaconelli, I saw that on a video, so I threw.
Yeah,
those.
Those guys have it figured out, man. Those guys are really good at it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that. What is it, the Zika or the Jika rig?
It's pronounced Zika rig. It's spelled Jika, but it's pronounced Zika. Ours is called the rattle rig for obvious reasons. So what we did was we took the technology that we have in our drop shot weights. They're all powder coated, and the key is on our extra wide gap hooks. We have this welded metal ring that's right on the hook, and that allows us to put a split ring on it for the actual weight. So that's the 3/8 there. We have 3/8. We have quarters, 3/8, and halves, and both come in 3/0 and 4/0 size extra wide gap hooks. They're all VMC hooks. We hope to stay with them. It's hard to get things in bulk right now, so that's kind of up in the air, but we'll always put a quality hook on it. I'm working with some other manufacturers trying to get the numbers up, and they're struggling just like everyone else to get the inventory. So that's where we are with that, but they're only available on the website again because I just can't get the hooks in right now to mass produce them. So we have limited quantities, but we definitely have some in stock, and I've been using those this year. The way I use them is putting it like a Texas rig, but I'm throwing it into brush piles and lay down trees and just shaking it and getting that rattle in places that they just don't normally hear it.
Yep. I love that rig, man. I started throwing it in the river here, which is like unheard of.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, what in the world are you doing? I'm just dragging it along the bottom in deep like pools, like 10 to 20 feet deep.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how are you fishing? Are you just dragging like a Carolina rig, or are you constantly reeling it?
I drag it like a jig. I'll shake it or something, and then I'll just drag it like a jig, and then I'll stop.
Okay.
It.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, but
what baits? Because here it's mainly dominated by largemouth in Virginia where I am, but we do have some very good smallmouth. But what kind of baits do you guys put on it?
I've been putting the missile baits D-bomb on it.
Okay.
Z-Man, what is that bait called? Matt, what is that called? Turbo Crawl.
The Turbo Crawl, the Pro Crawl. I'll throw either the Pro Crawl on for those because I don't really throw Texas rig anymore because I saw the success Brad was getting, or I'll throw like the Strike King Rodent on there.
Yeah.
Just because it's long enough to where I can Texas rig it, and it's got 4 appendges on it, so it has a ton of action. So yeah.
It seems to work really well around bridges and stuff from what I saw.
Okay.
But
so let me ask you this: when you started putting the 2 tungsten weights together back to back, and you started getting that rattle on it, did you ever do it a different way, and did you see an increase when you added that sound to it?
I've done it with just one weight, and I don't have confidence in it. I like that clicking, so
okay.
Yeah, I can't really tell. Excuse me, man, I can't really tell.
Okay. Yeah, when I started it with one weight. And it could have been on me too, because I just felt more confident having a little bit shorter. I don't know, the steel leader that you're putting the weight on. I would cut that real short.
Yeah.
Right.
It is mostly because I was more confident in a Texas rig, so I was trying to make it look like a Texas rig when it's not. And then I opened it up after I saw Brad doing it. I didn't get any bites on it with one weight, like ever, never one bite. And then I put 2 smaller weights, like 2 quarters on there, opposite each other, so they would click. And then I started getting bites on it. So, I mean, I can attest that I saw uptick in my bite ratio when I had 2 weights on there making a little bit of noise.
Sure.
Well, Matt was also throwing a Cinco on his, which I thought was weird. I was like, I didn't even think about doing that.
Yeah. I was, like I said, I was so stuck on, because it was a different, like I heard of the Zeke rig and everything, but I was so stuck on it. I was like, oh, it's a Texas rig. It's all it is a different presentation for a Texas rig. So I threw a Senko on it at a up north reservoir, and I got 3 smallmouth that day on that, and it was perfect.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's just you're right. It is like a Texas rig. The one advantage that it has, we don't have a lot of grass here where I am, but when it goes through the grass, what happens is that, let me take one out of the pack real quick. So because of that welded metal ring, which is what you tie your line to, as it falls, it allows it to fall straight down. If you were Texas rigging it, your weight is going to be there, and it's going to fall at an angle like that as it's coming down. So it's coming down like a 45.
Yeah.
But now with your line coming in, it can go straight, and it's going to penetrate the grass. So you don't need huge punching weights near as much. You don't need near as heavy a weight. You can throw a 1/2 ounce, a 3/8 ounce into these thick mats, and because of the absolute straight down trajectory that it has when it falls, you can get it in there with a lot less weight. And the same goes for throwing it in laydowns and brush piles. You're going to get hung a lot less because you're not dealing with that odd angle of the line and the bait coming down in that 45. It's coming down straight. It comes down straight. It's going to come back out straight, because then it just turns and then comes back out. So that's one big advantage. So you're right. It is a lot like a Texas rig, but it just has different I guess advantages to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. And it's a completely different, because everyone throws a Texas rig. I mean, it's the same thing as like the last couple of shows we've been making jokes of like, your brand new fisherman's got an oversized Columbia hat and a whopper plopper in his bag, and he's got a Texas rig, because everyone, I mean, it's the easiest technique to throw. You throw it out there, you either bounce it, you can swim it, or you drag it. You can't fish a Texas rig wrong. Like, you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's a presentation that is A, 100% different, and B, how yours is, where it flows straight down and has that rattle on it. It's like you said, it's ticking the other boxes for the bass's senses. So if they don't see it, especially doing through grass, because sometimes you'll throw it through grass and there's no fish in that spot of the grass, but there's fish right outside of it. They can't see your bait. They might feel it coming through the grass, but then they hear that little tick and you can watch them come move right over and grab it.
That's right. That's right. I like to personally, I throw this on long rocky points. And I'll throw it out there, and as I'm reeling it in nice and slow, I'll keep my rod at about 10, maybe 11 o'clock, and I'm just constantly winding it, just enough where I'm keeping bottom contact. But every time it hits a rock, comes over, you get the tick, you get that sound, and you get the vibration that they're just not used to hearing. And if they're tracking that bait, which they do a lot, they'll end up biting it at some point because it will deflect a little harder than the other times. But you're just appealing to more of the senses, and again, he's just going to be tuned into it. He's not going to follow over so long. And if he continues the more he follows it, the better your chances. If he follows it and he's right at the boat, obviously that's different. But if he follows it, and he hasn't turned away yet, there's a reason. And there's a chance with all that extra stuff that he doesn't normally get. He's going to go ahead and hold on to it.
Oh, for sure.
The major advantage I see of this compared to putting two weights on it, like a Tokyo rig, is getting snagged. So I notice I do get snagged a lot with the Tokyo rig, getting it in rocks and stuff, because I use quarter-ounce worm weights or whatever. This probably is pretty well. You probably can get stuck, obviously, but it's probably not as bad.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely have seen it doesn't get hung as much. You're right. I mean, if you wedge it in a rock, you wedge it in a rock. That is what it is. I wouldn't throw it on like riprap by the bridge and try to drag it. I would more like kind of, let it flow down a little bit. But on the long rocky points and stuff, because of the angle of that welded, the angle that creates with that welded metal ring, as you're pulling it, that weight is able to move freely, left, right, up, and down. So it doesn't get hung. It doesn't get hung near as much. Sorry, I'll do it again.
You're good.
Yeah. So as it's flowing, it's hitting the rocks, and it's just allowed to go naturally where it wants to go, where you're pulling it to. When it deflects, it won't wedge. It'll kind of shoot off to the side. And the other thing is when a fish does bite it, you set the hook, and he's on that. Because that weight is independent of the bait, it not only allows the bait to move freely and more natural, but he can't use that weight as leverage when he's fighting.
So there's a big thing right here. Instead of using 2 quarter-ounce tungsten weights, which is expensive, especially when you lose them a lot, you're getting one weight. That's 1/2 ounce. So how many come in a pack?
Yeah, good question. I was just going to hit on that. There's 2 to a pack on each of those. So again, we have the quarters, the 3/8, and the halves. And each of those come in either 3/0 or 4/0, and they're 2 to a pack.
Awesome. That's cool. Let's see here. Sorry. I was. Are you
I'm
doing
adding
the same thing, Matt?
I'm adding some to my cart right now.
I appreciate that.
All right, so we hit the rattle weight. We hit the Zika rig. Do you guys have anything else that you have on the market right now?
No, not yet. Again, we're working on the shaky head. I've had the design for a while. I had multiple designs. I want it to be a little different, but the fact is, a shaky head is a shaky head. So I'm not so much caught up on how it looks, even though a lot of the lures attract fishermen and not fish. I mean, when you go into a store, if it's really, really ugly, you're probably not going to buy it, and that's just the way it is. So I don't want it to turn people off, but that's taking a back seat to how effective it really is. So I have some prototypes, and I have the design done, and the manufacturing is ready. It's just not there yet, and a lot of it is just getting the components in bulk that I need to meet hopefully the demand that's created by releasing it to all the companies that already carry the rattle shots and the other products.
I remember the question I was going to ask earlier. It was regarding the shaky head. So traditional shaky heads, they have the corkscrew, right?
Yep.
Is there like any thought of making like an EWG type to where you don't have to use a shaky head? Because me and Matt, we complain all the time about trying to put Nico and Z-Man on a corkscrew.
Yeah,
that is tough, and that's a good question. So there's 2 different options, and I think you've already hit on both. The corkscrew I like but that's because of the baits that I use. But I also want to put the Elastec type plastics on there. And I don't know if anyone knows how to do it. I would love for them to just like send a message or something to show me how. I've even tried drilling holes in the end and just removing just a little bit of plastic with a tiny drill bit, and I still can't get it to work. So yeah, I guess that's a good point. That's not really something I've considered because the hooks that I was going to use doesn't have the offset bend to hold the bait like a traditional EWG type hook. So that's a great point. I was going to go with the corkscrew. That's normally what I use. It's a really good seller for BMC and some of the other guys that I've talked to. So that was the plan. But you brought up a good hook, good point. Maybe I'll have two options for that.
That'd be cool. I know.
Yeah.
We were on the river. Matt was just sitting here cussing up a storm. He's like, I hate corkscrews.
Oh, dude. So there is a little trick. You can get Elastec and stuff on corkscrews. You have a lighter. So of course I forgot my lighter. I told my, it's not my wife's fault. I was like, yeah, put a lighter, because she's got 77 of them, because she's a Bath and Body Works candle freak.
Yep, same here.
Yeah. So she's got like 37 lighters. So I was like, hey, just throw a lighter. So she did. But of course I forgot it. Because whatever, it was 4 a.m. I was trying to go fish and I forgot everything. I almost forgot lures. Bad day. But anyway, so yeah, I was like, I had the Nico crawls. I was like, dude, this is gonna look great on this finesse jig. I was sitting there, I was just shoving it on there, saying everything I could, and I was like, screw it. So then I had to use a Guggen bait, which, I mean, the rattle and chunk has a rattle in it, which is what really got me into the rattling game. But the thing that sucks about that is they last like one fish and then they just disintegrate. Stupid.
Yeah.
So what do you guys heat up the end and it kind of
you heat up the whole corkscrew, and then when you put it on, it doesn't really corkscrew in, it just melts on the way in.
Okay.
So that's a positive for two reasons. One, when it cools down, the bait will never ever ever come off that jig again. So you better really enjoy that bait you put on there, because it's never coming off. The only bad thing I found is if you heat it up and you put it in there and you're not really like diligent about how you're screwing it, you can kind of wallow it out because it's melting all of it, and then there's not enough material left to kind of set. And sometimes you can heat the plastic up too much, and then it'll drip out and it'll get on your hand, and then you'll have a permanent scar on your thumb like I have. So,
so when you take the one bait off of that corkscrew, maybe it tore or something like that, after 4 or 5 fish, does it leave all the like stuff in between the turns of that corkscrew, and now you can't put on another one?
No, the thing, like if I'm putting Elastec on 4 or 5 fish, I mean, I'm not worried. Like that bait's just on there. Like I have jigs in my box that have like Pro Crawls, Z-Man Pro Crawls on there that have been on there for like a year and a half. I've caught fish on them. It will just never come off. The bait won't rip, and it's great. Because that Elastec gets almost stuck in the corkscrew, so it'll just stretch, but it won't ever come off. It's like part of the bait now.
I'm gonna have to try that this weekend. We have a tournament Sunday. I'm gonna have one tied on.
Yeah, man. Just heat up the corkscrew. Like you don't have to get it like red hot, but just heat enough to where if you try it, it doesn't want to go on. Heat it up a little bit more. The second it starts spin it on real quick. Let it cool down for a minute, and then throw it in. You're good to go.
Okay, appreciate that.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't know that until Matt said something too. So that's cool.
Nice.
Cool
actually, the Paddle and Fin OG Brian is the one who told me about it last year, and it's awesome.
There you go. The Godfather.
The Godfather.
Speaking of Paddle and Fin, I wanted to say that as soon as the podcast is over, if you give me like 20, 30 minutes, there's gonna be a discount on there for anyone that's listening. Paddle Fan 10, and that'll give you 10% off of anything at the store.
Well, that is awesome. We got to make sure I don't forget that when I put in the thing. And also, I just ordered like $57 for the baits. So
okay.
I just put in the order. It's all right.
Oh, it just popped up on the top of my phone. Sure enough, 9 items. I got it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But hey, all the listeners, I just set he only did that because I was buying stuff. So you're welcome. We'll make sure to have it in the description down below the video. But yeah, thanks for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
So, is there anything else you wanted to add? I think we pretty much hit everything.
I'm probably forgetting something, and I'll remember it once we're done. But no, right now I think that's it. I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's awesome to share stories and tips and techniques and stuff. And thank you guys for helping me. I'm still full-time law enforcement. I have a wife and kids, and I do this and fish tournaments. Not very big tournaments, but we still fish, and we get in some big ones every now and then. And we've had a lot of luck with this. And at first it was just a matter of sharing it with some friends, and now it's turned into a business. And the really cool thing about it is that my kids have gotten to see the idea part of it and how it's grown into what it is now. And though it's not huge, I'm no strike king or anything. They've gotten to see that if you're just determined to do something and you're willing to work to get it, then it can work. And that's probably what I'm most proud of.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your services too, by the way.
Yeah. Same to you guys. Sure. Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Stay safe out there. I got a buddy. His name is Scott Knoll. He does some FLWs and stuff, and he's a retired law enforcement. He retired. I think he retired as chief of his department. He went all the way to the
Nice.
tippity top down in Cincy. But yeah, I've talked to him, and he explained, because he's been doing bass fishing or tournaments while in service and with the family and everything, and he's like, yeah, it can definitely be a handful. And now you're just running a small, large business on top of it because you're, you got your weights on all the major sites, plus running the website, and you're hand packing all the baits. So yeah, I mean, you got a lot on your plate. So good on you.
Yep. I'm happy to do it though, man. I'm glad that I'm glad that I have the opportunity, and even though the country's getting kind of crazy, we still have the options to do these things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, you got anything else to? Oh, sorry.
No, I'm done. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for having me.
Oh, for sure, man. We enjoyed having you on. No, he said the country's going. I was going to go on a rant, but I'm not going to because this is a fishing product show and not what that is. But no, I don't have really a whole lot left. I'm really pumped that thank you, Brad, for finding this because it's legit, especially the rattle rig. And then I'm super pumped for that shaky head for two reasons. A, I'm really curious to see how it's going to look because I'm trying to think how like a weight is. I can't ask you because it's not out yet, but maybe after the show I'll ask you. Okay. But yeah, man, I'm pumped. Thanks for coming on. Really interesting, and I agree with the science for everyone out there because I've said on the show, science in fishing isn't always a thing. I believe in this because I've seen it in action, just smacking a shaky head weight off a rock. So this definitely is going to be the money. So, but that's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, guys, thanks for listening. Go follow Dropzone on Facebook and Instagram. Their website. What is your website?
Rattleshot.com.
Rattleshot.com. Awesome. I'm glad I didn't say that because I would have said dropzonetackle.com.
And okay. I that is another website. I found that.
Yep. Dropzone Baits is definitely they're a wholesaler. They're much different than us, but rattleshot.com.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for listening. It's been a fun show. We'll see you guys next week and have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode here on Paddle and Fin. Be sure to drop a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, or smash that subscribe button on any platform you're listening in on. Be sure to check us out on Waypoint TV, waypointtv.com. Make sure you sign up for the Fantasy Kayak Fishing League at paddleandfin.com/fantasy. You could support this show through Patreon, patreon.com/paddleandfin. Don't forget to check out the website, paddleandfin.com. Catch us on YouTube. If you got a question, comment, or want to see a future guest on the show, be sure to email us at paddleandfin@gmail.com. Shout out to our show supporters, Yak Gadget. You can check out all the fine kayak accessories at yakgadget.com. Pelican Professional. For all your cases, coolers, and lighting needs, go to pelican.com. Rocktown Adventures, your Midwest premier paddle sports destination. Go to rocktownadventures.com. Eastport Marina, the beautiful destination on Dale Hollow Lake. If you're looking for lodging, kayaks, kayak accessories, or anything fishing related on the beautiful Dale Hollow Lake, go to eastport.info. And Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and fill your tackle boxes today.